Alright, getting started on the bedsides. So they're not in bad shape, actually, these rails. This is what I was most worried about. I need to double check on the other one, but I'm pretty sure the rail on top is good on it too. There's a couple little tiny places here and there, like, you know, right there. Not too bad, easily repairable. Some of this stuff, easily repairable. Somebody goober welded this big old mud flap or whatever it is on here, so I got to try to cut it off without destroying too much of the original bedside. And then these little reflectors are very, very hard to find, and they're very expensive when you do find them. And mine has some rust here, so we're going to see what we can do to get it off in one piece and try to repair it. It's going to be an interesting repair job, but these are just pretty much red marbles is what these are. It's pretty cool. Those are reflectors, and back in the day, I think the advertisement for them, I don't remember the name of the company offhand, but they claimed that they were indestructible. So it's pretty cool. And they showed, I think there were some videos that they made back in the day of people taking sledgehammers to them and stuff, and they don't break. So it's kind of cool. But that's where we're at on one of the bedsides. So there's a couple stars on here, and so most likely it may have had to get repainted at one point while it was in service, because maybe one of the stars faded out and the company made them repaint the stars, or possibly switched companies or something. But really cool thing, I found a little bit more clear on the other bedside. This is the bedside, by the way, and there's a company marking on here. On the other side, I only got pictures, not video, but you can see right here it says Company H. On the other bedside it says 103rd, and I think it says Infantry. So I think this was the 103rd Infantry, Company H, which is really cool. It's so awesome to be able to sand through the paint and come across the company badge. So I'm going to go ahead and go through these stars, because you can see right here that, I don't know, they must have put the star on later or previous or something. Kind of weird, because it's right over the top. You can see a little bit right here of what I'm assuming is an N, because I think, or an F, because I think it said 103rd INF. So I'm going to sand through these stars and see if maybe that company that marking is there, and I can maybe get a better picture of the company marking. But the other side's pretty clear, you'll see in the pictures. Super cool. Now I got some real history on this thing. I went through the star, and there it is. 103rd. Pretty sure that's INF, Infantry, Company H. What a cool thing to find. This is the best thing I've found about this truck's history. Period. I'd had no history on this truck whatsoever from a military standpoint. And there it is. Clear as day. Well, I won't say clear as day, but I am almost positive that's INF. If anybody has any ideas on what else it could be, but I'm pretty sure. I know there was 103rd Infantry in World War II, but there was also 103rd, I forget what it was. There was some other 103rd units out there. So but that sure looks like an INF. It looks a little weird because the I is large, capital, and the N and the F almost look like they're smaller. So that's weird. That's why I'm wondering if it could be something else. Unless maybe I sand away up here, maybe I'll find the top of the F, but it almost looks like it's just a small F here. But wow, this is so cool. I'm going to do a bunch of research on the 103rd. This is where somebody had goober welded some diamond plate. I guess they were trying to make mud flaps out of them or something. So, pretty nasty looking. But, as usual, I'm going to try to get this cleaned up and back to as close to original looking as possible. So, pretty bad. I mean, if you look in here, I don't know what these bolts were for. I got to go look at some pictures. It might have something to do with the tailgate. But there's this one bolt here, and it's rusted out and welded on this side, so I got to cut it all out, and I'll leave the hole because I need to go look at pictures. But then there's this tab on the inside with a bolt that's almost completely done rusting. It's like almost the size of a toothpick at this point. And I'm not really sure exactly what that is for. So it was for mounting something, I assume, but right offhand I just can't figure out what the hell it's for. So a lot of goobery stuff I got to clean up and chop off and try to repair. Where I'm at so far, not looking too bad. I'm getting this top edge a little bit nicer than I thought I would. Still not pretty, but I'm going to fill in all those holes. And then this patch back here, I'm going to patch that in because that's just too much crap missing and thin rusty metal. So I'll probably cut it across here, cut it up here, across there and down. I might keep that edge on there to keep me oriented so I know where to end. But not looking too bad. Yet again, I managed to do something pretty decent. It's not perfect like usual. I don't know if you can see it so well with the glare, but hopefully that's a good shot there. It was a lot of work trying to get the thing back into place. This top rail was rolled this direction too far. I had to bend it back and tack it in place and weld it, and my welds are not perfect, but I even managed to kind of get that little bit of that groove in there. So very pleased with what I got. Now we'll try for the other side. As you can see here, we've got a bunch of rust spots that have come through, and the reason why, if I can lift this one-handed here, is because on the back side here, this angle chunk of angle metal, angled steel, trying to get the best shot I can here, you can see that the moisture got in between the two pieces of metal because this was spot welded in place and rusted out, so it's really bad down there. And it rusted through. So what I'm going to do is try to replace it, but I'm going to do it a little bit different, because I think I'm going to keep it from just about here where my finger's at this direction, because it's not in too bad of condition. Maybe I should replace it all, but I think it might be okay because the metal's pretty thick still. It's strong. There's a couple spots that are not that great, but I don't think this is really heavily load bearing by any means. So, and in order to keep the original line and size and shape and all that kind of stuff. I kind of want to just leave a part of it and then recreate the rest of it the rest of the way down here. And the way I'm going to do it is a technique I learned that I have never done before, but I learned it online. I'm going to take the I'm going to take a straight edge. I'm going to basically mark a rectangle all along here to about maybe here, and then I'll just lay a piece along there and tack it in place, and then I'll cut the line where that piece is at. It's kind of hard to explain, but maybe I'll record a little bit of that part of the process. But essentially I'll lay a piece on top, tack it in place, I'll cut it, push it down and weld it in place, and then the other, the rusted part will just fall out when I'm finished. And then I will weld, I'll do some spot welds to weld the next piece, this L-shaped piece back on the back side and match it up, mate it up with the rest of it. So I'll probably try to record a little bit of that process. You saw how I tacked this plate in place on the back side, or front side, outside. I just tacked it along to get it down nice and flat. So now what I'll do is I'll take my grinder and I'm going to cut in, hopefully get a better angle here so that the light shows. So I'm going to go in at about a 45 instead of straight up and down. I'll go in at a 45 just along this entire edge. And what will happen is I'll cut a little bit at a time. I'll cut maybe 4 or 5 inches and then push it. I'll push this plate down so it's flush with the bedside, and I'll tack it in place, cut, tack it in place, tack it in place, cut, and keep going. And as I go, I'll just push this thing down level with the surface. This is going to take a long time because that's a long stretch and I don't want to warp the metal. So I'll be just doing little tiny tacks the whole way. So I'll film a little bit of that as I cut and tack and push, and then not going to film the entire thing, but that's how I'm going to do it, and then I'll show you the end result. I've got this mostly stitched down. I got to finish up down here a little bit, couple more spots, but I was going to show you it's all nice and flush along with the panel now, so worked out pretty good.
Back power.
It's kind of goofy, but it worked out good. Nice and flush. And then on the back side, this is the part that will come out. And it didn't fall off right yet. See, it's loose here. Didn't fall off yet, obviously, because I got to cut a couple more little tiny spots that I didn't quite get through, and then straight up here. So I'll cut that off straight so that I can butt the next piece up to it. So, but that's it. Now is the long and arduous process of welding this piece all the way in so that it looks like it was never patched in, and that'll take a long time so I don't warp the panel. I'm not super duper happy with this, but it turned out relatively good. So you can tell here's where I patched in. It's all ground off smooth. The other side's ground off a little bit nicer. I left the weld bead on the bottom side because it's not visible. That way it lets it retain a little bit more strength anyway. It's not perfect. I've got some warping and oil canning that's going on, but that was there previously, so I don't think it's from heat warpage, because I did a good job on keeping the heat down, but yeah, I don't know. It's not as happy with it as I was wanting to be, but I think it'll be okay. Not to mention, in some places I'll do some body work with filler. So here is the new piece of channel that I did. And I drilled holes in it so that I can just kind of spot weld it in place. I don't want to weld it all the way down, because that would just cause warpage probably if I don't, or take forever. And that's not how they did it anyway. They spot welded too. I don't have a spot welder, so I'm just drilling holes so I can spot weld manually like that. But I'll get that put in there, and then I'll kind of bend it into shape. I'll probably put a few tack welds in a few spots to make sure it's good and solid from rocking back and forth like that. But other than that, it's coming along pretty good. And I don't have a metal brake, bender, any of that stuff, so this is all hand bent, so it's very ugly, but it'll work. It'll be functional, and I'll kind of pound it into shape and make it look decent once it's welded on, and probably won't be able to even tell. There she is, back from the dead. as good as I'm gonna get it, and it's pretty good. It's not bad. Definitely would have been better off if I tried to find, you know, some spare parts out there and just got some bedsides or some manufactured ones, because I think you can get them. But I like to keep as much of this, the original stuff, as I can, and, you know, kind of do some handwork. So I think it's actually going to look okay. Guys, obviously a big basket case on both of these, but this one's a little bit worse because there's such a missing line. That rolled bead or dip that's supposed to be in there is just so hard to get out of this, so I'm having to recreate some of this top piece. And I did one here, and I did a horrible job because there's a gap here, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, or if I just leave it and try to hide it. I don't know yet, but I kind of got that one. But for the rest of this, not only does it have this bead rolled into it, it's arched over the top, and another bead on this side, but it's also, so we're compound curve, I guess, so it's curved this direction too. And I don't even have a bead roller, let alone all the right equipment to do this. So I'm taking a piece on the other side, the good side, and I'm just trying to form a piece of sheet metal over the top of it, just kind of pounding it into place. So I'm hoping this is gonna at least come pretty close to recreating, you know, what I'm looking for. So this is kind of what I'm doing here. Just kind of carefully, lightly tapping that down into place, and I've got this one that's kind of goes in the inside there. So I'll probably pound that a little bit more, get it down in there a little tighter, and then roll this over the edge, flatten it out over here. That gives me this curve here, and the bead roll. It's either that or I spend $200 or $300 on a bead roller that I'll use once. So that's how I'm doing it. Got a little bit more complicated. Instead of going with the little piece, I made a giant piece. Same thing, I formed it to that other side over there, and now it fits pretty good. So we're gonna get this tacked in place, but basically I'm gonna I need to replace all of this here, so I'm not gonna tack along here. I'm just gonna draw a line down here. I'll cut that off after this piece is on, so I don't lose my place, and then I'll replace this piece here. And then over here, I'm actually going to end up chopping this off right where this line is here, over and down and over like that, just because I want to keep this original bead roll right here. I don't want to mess it up. My bead roll is not as good. And then this piece, this chunk here was really bad, so it had to come out. So that's kind of where I'm at. Here's the piece, and it fits pretty nicely, so it's gonna look good. This is a little jacked up down here, but hell of a lot better than the way it was before. So that's how it fits on. And as usual, it's not going to be perfect, that's for sure. But I'm pretty happy with how it's going to fit in there and come back to almost original looking. At least it'll have the right shape, have the right grooves. I can do a little putty work if I want to. Structurally, it should be sound. That's the big piece, formed piece. And then, like I said before, after I get this tacked in place, then I'll chop this off and replace it, and I'll do the same thing over on this side here because that's pretty bad. So I'll chop a piece off here, replace it, that way I don't lose where I'm at. This piece has to be pretty structurally sound because this is where the tailgate hinge or pivot mounts. It actually mounts right here. There's a hole here and a hole here, so it needs to be relatively sturdy so it can hold a tailgate. So definitely have to replace this because it's just too weak. Another thing I wanted to show is, looks like there's a bullet hole. Now obviously it's probably nothing to do with the military. Someone probably just shot this over the years, but it's kind of cool. So I think I'm actually going to leave the bullet hole just for kind of a, I guess, a talking piece, but I think that's kind of cool. I'm going to leave it. Update on the bedsides. It's been hours and hours and hours of work. It's kind of fun, kind of irritating, but I'm there. I got it. They're definitely, like I always say, not perfect. I still got a couple little things to do. I need this tab on this one, so I got to get that done. I can probably just recreate that myself, fabricate it myself, but no big deal. But other than that, once I do a little bit of putty, body work, Bondo type work, and paint them, I think they will look pretty decent. So I'm pretty happy with it. With as bad as it was, this is pretty good. So that's it. Done with the bedsides.